Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's weird talking now because as you can imagine I pre-recorded a lot of the videos because a few weeks ago we started the second semester of our school year and I kind of foresaw that with the second semester starting I wouldn't have been able to record videos as much, so I did as much as I could before starting classes, and now I have a little bit of time, so I'm recording this video. And I have to be honest, it is a little weird. And this will be the first video on a class of the second semester, and for me there's no better way than to start with my favorite class, which is microeconomics. And microeconomics is studying like how individuals interact with each other economically, but also companies treated as individuals. And it is a very interesting class, and for me it is the best way to start the videos on the second semester. And as I always say, I'm not an expert on this topic. I'm just a college guy that wants to apply what we have been learning. So sit down and enjoy the video. Okay, so this is going to be the more technical part of the video, where I will give you some of the cornerstones of the discipline of microeconomics, which are going to be key to understand all that I'm going to say. If either you're not interested in the technical part, or if you just know the key principles of microeconomics, you can just skip this part, there is no problem. And first, I'm going to start with the core principle of microeconomics, and that is that when there are no restrictions, markets usually tend to settle in a point where demand and supply coincide. So when the needs of the buyers will meet the needs of the sellers. And this is called equilibrium. And the first key principle of microeconomics is that when there are no restrictions, markets tend to settle at the equilibrium point. And I'm going to give you like a few reasons why. The first one is that if the price is too high of a good, buyers will not buy it. So sellers will instinctively lower the price until buyers will start buying the good, and that will usually stop at the equilibrium point. Conversely, if the price is too low, there will be shortages of the good. That means there is not going to be enough of the good available to meet all of the demand, and in response to this, suppliers will increase the price until equilibrium eventually is reached. So either if the price is too high or too low, they will usually tend and settle towards equilibrium. And in a setting of equilibrium in the market, it is also said that the market is efficient, that it works in efficiency. And that is because at equilibrium, there is nothing you can do that improves either the condition of the seller or the buyer without making the other group worse. So at equilibrium, you also have the most combined benefits of sellers and buyers combined. And here another key distinction is needed, which is even more important in this video, and that is markets, economies that are efficient, they are not always fair. And that means that usually countries, governments will make policies that make a hit on the efficiency of the market, but to gain more fairness, more equity in the country. And an example of this is a minimum salary. It is something that damages the economy, the efficiency of the economy, but it is very important to low-income workers. And here we're going to see during the COVID pandemic, the policies that were adopted were not good economically, but they were aiming for sanitary fairness. So their goal was not to achieve market efficiency, but to get to go through the pandemic together, all at the same way. So now let's get into the substance of the video, which is trying to apply abstract knowledge into everyday's life. And today what I want to do is apply the key principle of microeconomics to analyze one policy that was very common throughout the world during the first lockdown, and that is price ceilings on masks. And what are price ceilings? They are essentially a maximum price for a good, and what that does is make the good more available to more people. So for masks, people with lower incomes now can afford masks. The problem is that suppliers at this lower price, they're not as profitable as they were before. So many suppliers will just stop making the good, causing shortages. And as we saw before, shortages are a very big problem, especially if the price that is imposed is way lower than the equilibrium price. And during the first pandemic in Italy, I live in Italy, so I make that example very often. The maximum price for masks was 50 cents of euros, while the equilibrium point at that time was around 10 euros for one mask, I think. So this lower ceiling made that masks could not be found anywhere, and shortages on a necessity good, because we have to remember that it's not like, for example, if I want to buy a pair of Jordan 1s, yes, there were few pieces available and it is below equilibrium market, but shoes are not a necessity, while masks during a global pandemic are a necessity. So creating shortages, and it is predictable because all these effects are found in my textbook of microeconomics. So, and the textbook doesn't talk about COVID because it's a little old. It's not way too old, but it's like 3 years old, so older than COVID. But it was a predictable consequence, and on a necessity good, that's not what you want at all. And the second problem is that there will be people that are willing to pay more to get a mask because they have more urgency, they need more, but that they cannot pay more to get it because it is illegal. So what will happen is a problem with how the good will be given. And usually when shortages related to price ceilings happen, the distribution of the good happens either through lack or personal connection. So there is a inefficient apportionment of the good, where the good will be given to people that do not value it as much and that were not willing to pay as much as other people with a higher urgency. And the third problem is illegal activities, because if there are laws, there will be also black markets. And with masks, for example, many people just went on sketchy Chinese websites or bought them under the table in the pharmacies for a higher price. And that is an issue. Now, with all this said, were price ceilings actually useful and worth it? So what I'm going to say now is going to be my reasoning, but it's a posteriori reasoning. So knowing a lot of things that just couldn't be known before. But mind you, many of the side effects, it's just as like shortages, inefficient apportionment of the good, waste of resources, because to get a mask you have to do long queues, and even if you gain money technically because you spent less, you wasted another resource, which is time. And for many people, time is even more valuable than money. So that's also another side effect of imposing a price ceiling, but mind you also a price floors or a minimum price for something. It is counterintuitive, but it just has the same effects. So shortages, inefficient quality, inefficient apportionment, waste of resources just like time, and then the fostering of black markets. Those are all textbook examples of the side effects of these policies. And so even if now, obviously, I have more information that the policymakers didn't have at the time, still a lot of the side effects were predictable and are textbook examples, so they could have been known. So first of all, the long queues that were created outside of pharmacies in the setting of a global pandemic, that had to be avoided, because if waiting in line to get a mask, there are tons of people, the virus spread. And I'm not saying that it contributed in spreading the virus, but let's say that it was not a great idea to do it in that setting. And still talking about queues, what was not predicted and that couldn't be predicted is that the queues were made of the most vulnerable portion of society, which were old people, because most of the young kids my age and older people, like not too old, let's say until 50 years old, 62, just went on Amazon and bought the masks there. They had to pay a little bit more, the equilibrium price. They were willing to buy at the equilibrium price, which was $10 more or less, but they didn't have to go through all the issues caused by the price ceiling. So they didn't have to wait in line, they didn't have to just get them for luck. So people were willing to buy them for a higher price on Amazon, and this made only older people that don't know how to use the internet going actually to pharmacies and queue outside. That couldn't be predicted, but that was still a big side effect. And then, to close all of the video, are price ceilings worth it? No, if you ask for an economic point of view. But if we just analyze the effects on masks, no. The idea was good because it made the good available to more people, but the markets were very fragile at the time. We were coming out of a big lockdown and industries were not doing good, so it was not an easy time for the market already. And imposing these limits was even a heavier hit on many industries that started producing masks to be profitable. And in my opinion, there were other possible solutions to give masks to low-income families, giveaways for example, just like send them in the mail, just one mask for each member of the family. There were other possible solutions. The one I just gave you was like out of my head in a few seconds, and I think there were many possible solutions that didn't tamper with the market that was already going through a lot. This said, this brings me to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it's not too difficult. I always like to make a connection between the real world and the thing that we study. And I like economics a lot because it's just like math and reading graphs, but applied to real life. So it's everything you learned since elementary school, but applied in real life. And I really like it. And I'm hoping that I've shown you my passion for a little bit. And thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one. See you guys.